A wonderful subscriber recommended this book. I decided to get it, and I'm going to show you a little bit about it. So it's Joseph Silverman, Abstract Algebra. Um, it's an AMS book. It doesn't have answers in the back. I did not like that. I'm sorry to say, just because I'm a self-learner. But I'm finding, and again, I'm just one data point, that in my case, for the books that I buy, Abstract Algebra has turned out to have a fantastic selection of books, and I have it. I have a great selection. Technically, I may not have needed this book. I already have plenty of Abstract Algebra books if you've seen my previous videos. But unlike analysis, I think in the case of analysis, I don't really know why. Maybe it's a baby rooting problem that analysis has. But in the case of analysis, maybe it's just a bigger field. Maybe because when you bring in calculus, you're bringing the 10,000 calculus books that have been published. I cannot say the same thing about my analysis books. I think I have a pretty good selection, but I feel like for abstract algebra, I have a neater, cleaner selection. I don't know. I'm going to go with that. So the Professor Silverman, it's a very readable writer. He reminds me of Abbott's analysis book. He's got some introductory basics and then goes into groups. So it's a groups then rings book. But I really like, and I'll show it, he does a little bit of the spiral method, which I'm a huge fan of the spiral method. Actually, my favorite quantum field theory book, Peskin and Schroeder, does that. And I found it incredible. The spiral method is all about not going in and telling you everything there is to say about groups, but actually giving you like a little dip in the pool, giving you a little dip in the pool of rings, a little dip in the pool of fields, and then going back and then filling it in. So you get a first cycle and then you get a second cycle, and you'll see it in the table of contents for this book that there are part ones and there are part twos. So he does a round one of groups, rings, and I'm going to go slowly so you can pause it, and vector spaces and fields. And then he goes and does a part two of groups, rings, fields and groups, vector spaces. And then he's got modules, which I love that he has that. Rings plus vector-like spaces, more groups in a part three, more modules in a part two. And then he's got a bunch of additional topics, which I personally like this setup. In the case of Gallian and other books, they stick in some of the applications in all the early chapters. I'm not a fan of that. I really like it when they're at the end. So I like that about this book. But yes, I am very disappointed to see that there are no answers to the exercises. Although I see many, many examples. Also, a little tidbit, the book is actually printed in color, even though most pages are in black and white. But occasionally you will see a little color. I like that. So yeah, one thing that I really like, yeah, you can, if you, I'm just gonna show you this, and then you can pause and read this at your own leisure. One thing that I really like is he describes how the textbooks are, and he's so right. A book like Lang's Algebra, 914 pages, Dummett and Foote, 932 pages, are more like dictionaries. They've got a bunch of stuff. And this book is not. This book is just a teaching book where you're given a good chunk of abstract algebra to learn the field, but it's not a dictionary. Yeah, he calls it properly so a textbook. Yeah, he's got schedules. I mean, this book can be used for a total of a 3-semester course. I believe that. Yeah, so some of the basics. There's a lot of like how you do math, which I really like. I'm always going to consider myself a beginner just because I'm not a math major. I'm not a real mathematician, just some dude out on the interwebs. Yeah, I like that a lot. Very clean. The book reads really clean from the parts that I was able to survey. He's even got cute, yeah. See a little color. Now, it's got a good chunk of problems, a good chunk of examples. So, for example, let's just go through and look at rings. Look at that. But yeah, I'm gonna say it multiple times. It's such a wonderful book, and it's such a shame that it doesn't have that extra 20 pages of answers to selected exercises. But luckily, I have that from other books, so I do plan to use this book as a reference. This is the vector spaces part, fields. But yeah, so there's a lot of material that's front loaded because of that spiral method. But then at the same time, some material that is early on in a book like Galleon happens to be later. I'll give you the example because I am fixated on transpositions these days. I just want to figure them out. This book actually deals with transpositions in permutation groups all the way back in chapter 12. So, each method has, each way of slicing the onion has its own advantages and disadvantages. So, of course, the advantage here is you get exposed to a good view of all of abstract algebra very early, and then you get it polished. But then that means that some topics that books have in an introductory chapter can end up really at the back of the book. If I go through to the additional topics, just so you can see what they are, I like that he's got elliptic curves, a little bit of algebraic geometry, some cryptography, some graph theory, tensor products, bing, bing, bing. I mean, like really good stuff. The proofs read full. It's not, which I always, when I see in a book where the proofs are like 3 lines, I'm like, oh my God, this is gonna be impossible to read, or it's meant for graduate students or real mathematicians. But yeah, if you look at the proofs in the book, they're fully fleshed out for babies, which I love. So there you have it. That is Silverman.